Welcome to worship at Wild Rose United Church, where we seek to embody the beloved community of Jesus through radical welcoming, progressive theology, and social justice. No matter if you grew up in the United Church of Canada or had never attended any church before this morning, you are welcome. No matter if you come full of optimism or joy, or burdened by shame, grief, or fear, or anger, there is a place for you here. No matter if you come seeking answers or only wish to better understand the questions, all God's children of every color of the rainbow are embraced as sacred, treasured, and made in the image of God. My name is Speer. My personal pronouns are he and him, and I'm privileged to be the minister here at Wild Rose United Church. With me in the sanctuary today and delivering leadership are Dan Sommerville and Diane McKenzie, Karen Nell-Bennett, Wendy Lasalle, Noemi Flores, Marlene Cole, Don McIntosh, Bill Aitken, and Corinne Salajano, and Graceland Salajano as well. Wherever you are, however you're accessing this service, whether it's on Facebook or on YouTube, I hope you will do us a favor and let us know in the comment section or the chat section who you are and that you're watching. And that will give us a record that will both be helpful and meaningful for us. One part of this morning's service is communion. Holy Communion is normally done with bread and either wine or grape juice. Here in the sanctuary, we will each partake of what we have with us. Where you are, you can participate with whatever you have on hand. Crackers, cookies, bread or granola, grape juice, apple juice, wine, tea, or hot chocolate. If you choose to participate in the communion portion, I invite you to have those things ready in advance. Long before anyone who looked like me came to this continent from Europe or to this place where the bow and the elbow meet, called Mokinstsis in Blackfoot and Calgary in English, there were people here who had been here from the beginning and who had fully developed systems of culture and economics and politics and spirituality. We acknowledge that history and we acknowledge our relationships with our First Nations neighbors, the peoples of Treaty 7, including the Blackfoot Confederacy comprising the Siksika, Kainai, and Piikani First Nations, as well as the Tsuut'ina First Nation and the three nations of the Stoney Nakoda, Wesley, Bearspaw, and Chiniki, and also Métis Nation of Alberta. We all have work to do in healing and reconciling the broken relationships of centuries. A few announcements before we move on. This evening at 7 o'clock, the 12th night celebration will stream on Simons Valley United Church's Facebook page, including contributions from Wild Rose United Church. It is once again not recorded live, but recorded with contributions from multiple congregations. This Wednesday, January 12th, is the monthly movie night for the Wellness Hub, and so you can look in Community Contact and contact Natasha for more information about that. I think the movie is called Osmosis Jones, and it's a body journey movie, I believe. And also this week is annual report deadline week, so if you are responsible for an annual report, we hope to see those coming in this week. And now, as we prepare ourselves for worship, Karen will lead us in our opening song, and Marlene will light our Christ candle.
Our light is gleaming, spreading its arms throughout the night, living in the light. Come share its gladness, God's radiant love is burning bright, living in the light.
Please join me in our call to worship. The yellow portion is for you. In times of distress, I turn to you, O God, for your steadfast love is good. When mockers jeer and predators stalk, I pray to you. From all that would bring me down, you protect me. You turn to me according to your abundant mercy and ease my broken heart. Amen.
As we gather for worship, some of us come with burdens of grief, fear, anger, or shame. Let us join in prayer and lay our burdens at the feet of the one who is always ready to listen. Let us pray. God of cleansing water, renewing breath, and enlivening fire, touch our lives today. Send your Holy Spirit to descend upon us with a word of comfort and peace. We are afraid of the waters of deep faith, that we will be overwhelmed and lose our footing. So we play in the shallow end and wonder why we are not satisfied. Help us to trust that your love will keep us afloat. We are afraid of your wind, that it will move us where we do not wish to go. So we plant our feet in defiance and wonder why we make no progress. Help us to trust that there is nowhere we can be that is not saturated with your presence and purpose. We are afraid of your fire, that we will be consumed. So we retreat to safe places without challenge, conflict, or uncertainty. Send your Spirit to cleanse, calm, and claim us. Call us by name and bestow us with a spirit of peace. Help us to trust that we will not be annihilated, but rather will shine like a light to the world. Amen. The peace candle is a tradition that has been spreading from congregation to congregation for almost 40 years. Peace is characterized not by the absence of conflict, but by the presence of justice. Peace is the state that emerges in our midst when those who have much do not have too much, and those who have little do not have too little. When the very old and the very young feel supported and secure. Parents can feed their children and themselves, and all have the opportunity for meaningful work in their community. As I light this candle, let us commit once again to pray and work for that kind of peace.
The first reading is from Luke 3:15 to 18 and 21 to 22. The people were filled with expectation, and everyone wondered whether John the Baptist might be the Christ. John replied to them all, "I purify you with water, but the one who is more powerful than me is coming. I'm not worthy to loosen the strap of that one's sandals. The one who is coming will purify you with the Holy Spirit and fire. The shovel that sifts the wheat from the husks is in that one's hands. The wheat will be cleared out of the threshing floor and onto the barn, but the husks will be burned with a fire that can't be put out." With many other words, John appealed to them, proclaiming good news to the people. When everyone was being baptized, Jesus also was baptized. While Jesus was praying, heaven was opened, and the Holy Spirit came down in bodily form like a dove. And there was a voice from heaven, "You are my child, whom I dearly love. In you I find happiness." Christ has no body now but yours, no hands but yours. Here on this earth, yours is the work to serve with the joy of compassion. No hands but yours to heal the wounded world, no hands but yours to soothe all its suffering, no touch but yours to people of God. Christ has no body now but yours, no hands but yours. Here on this earth, yours is the work to serve with the joy of compassion. No eyes but yours to see as Christ would see, to find the lost, to gaze with compassion. No eyes but yours to glimpse the holy joy of the city of God. Christ has no body now but yours, no hands but yours. Here on this earth, yours is the work to serve with the joy of compassion. No feet but yours to journey with the poor, to walk this world with mercy and justice. Yours are the steps to build a lasting peace for the children of God. Christ has no body now but yours, no hands but yours. Here on this earth, yours is the work to serve with the joy of compassion. Through every gift, give back to those in need. As Christ has blessed, so now be his blessing. With every gift, a benediction be to the people of God. Christ has no body now but yours, no hands but yours. Here on this earth, yours is the work to serve with the joy of compassion.
I brought one of my Christmas presents here with me today. Something that my wife Heather bought for me. Can you see what that is? It's not quite a Corvette. It's close. Folks in the sanctuary? Well, you don't need to tell me what kind of car it is. I think it's a Toyota Supra. But it's a car made of Lego blocks. And it's actually, I don't know how many of you out there have built with Lego blocks. This is the first kit, the first Lego kit I've ever had. I built with other things when I was younger. I liked them more. But I had some interesting thoughts as I was building this. Look at the pieces we can see. Across the front of the car here, even just this little piece, this little section, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different Lego bricks right across the front. And this whole thing is made up of mostly small pieces. The main chassis body is probably the biggest piece in the whole thing. We see lots of yellow, don't we? It might make you think that most of the Lego bricks must be yellow because of how much yellow we see. But if we were to take this apart into all of its separate little pieces, there would be black pieces and gray pieces and a few red pieces. And in fact, except for the opening where the driver sits, the same as an opening in any car, this whole thing is solid. The bricks all fit together to make it a solid piece. So there's pieces inside there that we can't even see no matter how we turn it. I wonder, if I took a piece off the front, oh, now I can't even, I cut my fingernails this morning. Now I can't even take a piece off the front like I planned to. If I take a piece off the front, it doesn't quite look the same, does it? But it still works as a car, right? It still drives. If I took the windshield off, it would look different, but it would still drive as a car. But there are pieces on the inside that if you tried to build it without the piece on the inside, it would just fall apart. It wouldn't even be able to drive. It might still look the same on the outside, but you couldn't hold it and move it and drive with it. The reading that Wendy's going to share in a moment is about how when we are baptized or when we go through any other sort of initiation into the church, we all become part of one piece. Just like all the bricks, all the pieces of Lego that went into making this car. Some of us are more visible than others. Some of us are brighter shining than others, bright yellow rather than black. Oh, here, I took the windshield off like I was talking about. Now it's a convertible. But if you take away a piece, sometimes it doesn't look the same. Sometimes it doesn't even work without that piece. And so, whether you're a person who is visible, brightly shining, or whether you're a person who works on the inside, holding things together, or whether you're a person who maybe like the wheel that helps things go but isn't very glamorous. When we're in the church, we all know that we're each a piece of the same body. And I hope that you will find your place as part of the body in the church. Thank you for listening today. Wendy has our second reading.
This is a reading from 1 Corinthians 12, 4 to 21, and 26 to 27. There are different spiritual gifts, but the same Spirit. And there are different ministries, and the same Lord. And there are different activities, but the same God who produces all of them in everyone. A demonstration of the Spirit is given to each person for the common good. A word of wisdom is given by the Spirit to one person. A word of knowledge to another according to the same Spirit. Faith to still another by the same Spirit. Gifts of healing to another in the one Spirit. Performance of miracles to another. Prophecy to another. The ability to tell spirits apart to another. Different kinds of tongues to another. And the interpretation of the tongues to another. All these things are produced by the one and same Spirit who gives to each person at will. Christ is just like the human body. A body is a unit and has many parts, and all of the parts of the body are one body, even though there are many. We are all baptized by one Spirit into one body, whether Jew or Greek, or slave or free, and we were all given one Spirit to drink. Certainly the body isn't one part, but many. If the foot says, "I'm not part of the body," because I'm not a hand, does that mean it's not part of the body? If the ear says, I'm not part of the body because I'm not an eye, does that mean it's not part of the body? If the whole body were an eye, what would happen to the hearing? And if the whole body were an ear, what would happen to the sense of smell? But as it is, God has precisely placed each one of the parts in the body at will. If all were one and the same body part, what would happen to the body? But as it is, there are many parts but one body. So the eye can't say to the hand, I don't need you, or in turn, the head can't say to the feet, I don't need you. If one part suffers, all the part suffers with it. If one part gets the glory, all the parts celebrate with it. You are the body of Christ and parts of each other. God offers us words of life, the living word. Amen.
There's a joke that's been running through my mind this week that I hesitate to tell you, but I think I'm going to. And because I was hesitating to share it, I didn't memorize all the details, so I'm not going to get the details exactly right. It's a joke by Emo Phillips. And it was voted at some point, or decided at some point by someone somewhere, that this was the funniest joke mentioning God in existence. I don't know if that's true, but I like it, and I'm going to share it for a specific reason. Joke goes like this. I was walking across the bridge when I saw a man about to jump. And I rushed over to him and said, please don't jump. I'm a Christian. I think there's hope. And he said, I'm a Christian too. So I said, Catholic or Protestant? And he said, Protestant. And I said, me too. And I said, Reform or Baptist? And he said, Baptist. And I said, me too. This is me as Emo Phillips. And I said, Northern Baptist or Southern Baptist? And he said, Northern Baptist. And I said, me too. Northern Baptist Minnesota Conference or Northern Baptist St. Louis Conference? I'm making up the details. And he said, Northern Baptist Minnesota Conference. And I said, me too. Northern Baptist Minnesota Conference Doctrine of 1890 or Northern Baptist Minnesota Conference Doctrine of 1925? And he said, Northern Baptist Minnesota Conference Doctrine of 1890. And I said, heretic, and pushed him. The Corinthians, the people in Corinth to whom this letter is addressed, we gather from the mentions of them in the Bible and elsewhere that they were very keen on separating themselves into categories. Corinth, as a city, sits on the mainland of Greece, on the isthmus that connects the continent of Europe to the Peloponnesian Peninsula. There's the Peloponnesian Peninsula, and then the land narrows, and you have the European mainland. And Corinth is right on that isthmus. Which means, and to the south of Corinth, of course, in the Peloponnesian Peninsula, are Athens and other major cities. So Corinth receives land traffic from the north and from the south, and receives traffic by sea from the east and the west. So it is quite literally the crossroads of the Mediterranean, or one crossroads of the Mediterranean. And something about this culture, this mixing of influences, this accessibility from both Athens and the rest of the European continent, accessibility from both the western side of the Mediterranean and the eastern side of the Mediterranean, creates in Corinth a desire to compare and to rank. Whether the finest rugs come from Syria or from Turkey. Whether the finest wine comes from Italy or Dalmatia. Whether Christians who were Jewish first are more Christian than Christians who were not Jewish first. Whether those who were baptized by Paul the Apostle have a different standing than those who were baptized by Apollos, the leader in Corinth. Whether those who have the gift of preaching have a greater measure of grace than those who have the gifts of healing or governing. Whether those who are gifted in ways that bring others in are part of the group, or if they stand separate or above from the group. There's been an interesting conversation happening in the United Church of Canada that I think would benefit us to talk about this year in 2022. It's a conversation about membership. As we watch our membership numbers diminish and realize that when we look at the statistics, our membership numbers have always trended downwards as the United Church of Canada. Even though through the 1950s, we were welcoming thousands of new members every week in the United Church of Canada, or every month. That was also the height of the baby boom and the number of people in Canada and the post-war immigration boom. The number of people in Canada was growing faster than our membership was, and we chose to neglect that detail. Until in around 1968-69, our total number of members declined for the first time. There was a study that went around about 6 or 7 years ago. Congregations were asked to participate. Presbyteries, which existed at that time, were asked to participate to try to discover how we understand membership and what the Standing Committee on Theology, I can never remember their full name because it's very, very long, what they discovered was that the church was pretty evenly split, the United Church of Canada as a denomination, between people and congregations who understand membership to be a sacramental act that unites us with a great cloud of witnesses by recognizing in worship a reality that has come to exist and making a commitment in worship to join with the United Church of Canada and all who have been its members in the past. And people and congregations who believe that membership is a practical matter of defining who makes up your community of faith. That the local congregation should have autonomy in deciding how to determine who is and is not a member. Evenly split. So the Standing Committee on Theology, which has a much longer name that I can never remember, brought a proposal to the last General Council that they thought might be a fitting compromise. It said that if congregations want to include people more fully who don't wish to go through the initiation rituals of baptism and confirmation, for whatever reason, many of which might be very valid, then there could be another category of membership, which would be a person who had expressed their commitment to a local community of faith without joining the membership of the United Church of Canada. And on the floor of General Council 43, that proposed compromise was evenly split. I don't think that it was acceptable to one group in the initial division and unacceptable to the other. I actually think it was acceptable to part of this group and part of this group and unacceptable to others. So again, evenly split. I don't know how we're going to come to terms with this. Because if baptism and confirmation, in which we make a spiritual commitment to be in the form of a sacrament, to become joined, spiritually and mystically joined to the church as a body, then what do any of our rituals mean? I don't know. The baptism of Jesus that we heard about earlier in the first reading takes place in the context of people in the Jewish homeland who are wishing to free themselves from the influence of the powers that are tearing them apart and destroying their perceived identity. That they will travel to John in the desert, symbolically journey with him through the Jordan River, and return to their homes as people who are newly committed to a life of faith. The core disciples of Jesus, Andrew and his brother Simon Peter, James and his brother John, possibly Mary Magdalene and the other women who are spottily named, likely Lazarus, Mary and Martha from Bethany. All were there at the ministry of John the Baptist. When Jesus decides that it is time for him to begin his ministry, he goes first to those who he encountered in the wilderness when they symbolically traveled across the Jordan River together. Paul, the apostle in 1 Corinthians, is speaking to people who have undergone the Christian rite of baptism, which, in our earliest description of it, is very involved. It involves fasting. It involves a ritual bath, followed by an anointing of the entire body with oil that's rubbed in by the community, and a dressing in a new garment, so that when the person steps out of the spa, so to speak, they are not only clean, but they are shiny and new. Now, whether that description that we have from the early 2nd century is what happened in Corinth with Paul, we don't know. But what we do know is that baptism was at the center. I've baptized people from of all ages. I don't know the youngest that I've baptized. I suspect I wouldn't have agreed to baptize anyone under about 6 weeks of age, just because they shouldn't really be out of the house that early or that much. I've baptized people. I'm trying to think of the other end of the age range of people that I might have baptized. But I've baptized few, very few. Less than 30 people, probably. Maybe even less than 20. When I talk to toddlers about baptism, 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds who are being brought for baptism, I say, what we're going to do is we're going to say some prayers, and everyone's going to be there, and we're going to put water on your head. And then I say, do you know who else had water on their head? Your mom and your dad had water on their head. And I had water on my head. And all the people there who are watching know what it's like to have the water on their head. Even if it happened before you can remember, you have sat and you have watched, you have observed. And though you don't have your own memories of the event, you know how it went. Sometimes it's done by pouring, sometimes it's done by sprinkling, sometimes it's done by immersion. Our own instructions are that it should include the visible and generous use of water, which we are welcome to interpret what visible and generous means. But in an emergency, I was taught that it is sufficient to breathe into the palm of your hand, put the condensation on your thumb, and that is enough water. I understand the conflict for some in becoming full member. Some believe that it will negate or be disrespectful to their upbringing if it was in a different branch. Some know for a certainty who wish to be involved in their local United Church of Canada, but also wish to be involved in a Jewish community or a Baha'i community or a Muslim community or a Sikh community. They know that if they go through the Christian initiation ritual, it will exclude them from the other community that they wish to be part of. And they firmly in their hearts believe that they can do both. There are people who think that becoming a member means that you'll be asked to sit on a committee. We should be asking everybody what job they want to do, what contribution they want to make. Some believe that to go through Christian initiation would not be genuine for them because they don't believe their faith is strong enough, or they don't believe that they are decent enough, or that they just don't like standing up in front of a group of people and responding to questions. Sorry, I drop my voice and I get quieter. I know that I do it. I try not to do it, and I apologize that I do it, but it happens. They don't want to stand in front of a group of people responding to questions. They feel like the wheat and the chaff that John the Baptist speaks of in our first reading, the wheat that is separated out and taken into the barn, the chaff that is burned as fuel. They feel like they have too much chaff in them, that they are not worthy of being put into the barn. Or that if they welcome Christ, they will be unable to live up to the promises that they make. I think it's important for us here at Wild Rose United Church to engage with these questions of what membership means and what membership looks like. But when Paul says that each has been given gifts by the Spirit at will, to be used for the purpose of the good news, and that as one body, we who are the church must hold together not insisting that some are spiritually better than others, not suggesting that some are part of the body while others are not, not suggesting that the head of the body is important while the foot of the body is unimportant. Paul bases that on the understanding that we are baptized, that we have joined with Peter and Andrew and John and James and Mary and Martha and Jesus in symbolically traveling through the waters, committing ourselves to resist the forces that serve to diminish us, tear us apart, threaten the future, and work together for a greater good. Paul doesn't say that baptism comes after you are perfect. Paul doesn't say that baptism restricts you from participating anywhere else. In fact, Paul says the opposite. Paul doesn't say that being a member of the body of Christ means you have dealt with all the chaff in your life already. When the Apostle Paul looks at the church, he sees a group of wounded but hopeful people doing their best to be something new and different in the world. And if we can't embrace baptism as a sign of a lived reality, that we are one people living together, trying to do something new and wonderful, then I don't know what we can agree on. I just know that I am grateful for every person who comes to the church with questions or with fears or with doubts, and whether they choose to become a full member or choose to help in the ways that they are able without taking that step. I'm grateful for each and every one of that cloud of witnesses. And I'm honored and humbled to be a member of that body. And I hope you'll join me in that. Karen and Dan have another hymn for us.
as we come joyful to be here, in the praise on our lips, there's a sense that God is near. We are one as we sing, as we seek, we are found, and we come needful of God's grace as we meet together in this place. We are one as we share brokenness and fear, in the touch of a hand, there's a sense that God is here. We are one as we care, as we heal, we are healed, and we share warmth in God's embrace as we pray together in this place. We are one as we feast, peace becomes the sign in the bread and the wine. There's a sense of love divine. We are one as we come, as we feed, we are fed, and we feel God's refreshing grace as we meet at table in this place. We are one as we hear, heart and hand unite in the word we receive. There's a sense that God is light. We are one as we live, as we love, we are loved, and we seek justice in God's ways as we move together from this place.
There's no place like home, a small corner of the world that feels like it's truly yours. Somewhere to hang your hat, somewhere to lay your head, somewhere warm, somewhere safe. There's 1,000 reasons to pack a box. Sometimes it's a moment to reminisce and take stock. But tonight, for many, it's a time of uncertainty, tension, and hard choices. What can be carried? What to store away? What to leave behind? Where to go? And it's cold out there. This February, we're walking in the coldest night of the year, a fundraising walk where you can pick a local charity serving people and families experiencing homelessness, hunger, and hurt, and raise much-needed funds during this difficult season. So join us. Start a team with your friends and family. Fundraise, donate, share, and walk with us. Let's get together and brave the cold, because we know how great it feels to be warm.
We will walk through the cold and the dark in February 26 to declare our concern for people who have no home and take shelter in nooks and crannies. We will work for those whose days are a battle to house and feed their families, and whose nights are filled with fear and frustration. We will walk for those driven from home by violence and abuse, and we walk for people overwhelmed with isolation, guilt, and despair. We walk humbly, realizing that anyone can lose their footing and then lose everything else. Each step we take brings someone closer to safety, health, and home, as together we raise funds for organizations whose commitment and work transform people's lives. Please donate or volunteer, and on February 26, walk with me to raise funds. Last year, we walked individually. It may be the case this year as well. Please contact me for more information. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Noemi. The coldest night of the year is an outreach ministry that we support here at Wild Rose United Church, and you can expect to see some information in the community contact about that. Now on the screen and also available on the website are all of the ways that we can continue the ongoing ministries of, continue our support for the ongoing ministries of Wild Rose United Church. Thank you so much for all you have given and all that you will give in days and weeks to come. All of our offerings further the renewing and reconciling work of God in the church, which we are called to join. As we contemplate our offering, Dan has an offering of music for us. Let us pray. Loving God, we know the secret a little. Help us to know it better, that ordinary things become divine things through a simple act of love. May our love go with the gifts we offer and transform them into abundant life for all our relations. May your love go with us and transform us into your faithful people. Amen. In the sacrament of communion, the ordinary things of life, water, bread, and wine, point beyond themselves to God and God's love, teaching us to be alert to the sacred in the midst of life. This is not the table of Wild Rose United Church or the United Church of Canada or even the Worldwide Church. It is Christ's table, and all are welcome at the table of the Lord. There are many reasons you might choose not to partake, but please stay and continue to participate. Holy Communion is normally done with bread and either wine or grape juice. Here in the sanctuary, we will each partake of what we have with us. I have some Indian-style non-flatbread from the supermarket and unfermented grape juice. You can use crackers, cookies, bread, or granola, grape juice, apple juice, wine, tea, or hot chocolate. If you choose to participate, I invite you to have those things ready now. Carrying a vision of creation healed and restored, we welcome all in the name of Christ. Invited to the table where none shall go hungry, we gather as Christ's guests and friends. We offer worship as an outpouring of gratitude and awe, as a practice of opening ourselves to God's still small voice of comfort and to God's rushing whirlwind of challenge. Through word, music, art, and sacrament, in community and in solitude, God changes our lives, our relationships, and our world. We gather with trust. Let us pray. Blessed are you, gracious God, creative and self-giving, generously moving in all the near and distant corners of the universe. Nothing exists that does not find its source in you. From the beginning, your Spirit has swept over the face of creation, animating all energy and matter and moving in the human heart. Creator, Christ, and Spirit, we praise you for your love expressed to us through Jesus, a Jew born to a woman in poverty in a time of social upheaval and political oppression. He knew human joy and sorrow. So filled with the Holy Spirit was he that in him people experienced the presence of God among them. Jesus announced the coming of God's reign, a commonwealth not of domination but of peace, justice, and reconciliation. He tended to the sick and fed the hungry. He forgave sins and freed those held captive by all manner of demonic powers. He crossed barriers of race, class, culture, and gender. He preached and practiced unconditional love, love of God, love of neighbor, love of friend, love of enemy. And he commanded his followers to love one another as he had loved them. In response to who Jesus was, we celebrate him as the Word made flesh, the one in whom God and humanity are perfectly joined, the transformation of our lives. Grateful for your loving action, we cannot keep from offering praise. Holy, holy, holy mystery, beyond complete knowledge, above perfect description. You create the universe, and with it the possibility of being and relating. You tend the universe, mending the broken and reconciling the estranged. You enliven the universe, guiding all things toward harmony with their source. In the communion meal, wine poured out and bread broken, we remember Jesus. We remember not only the promise, but also the price that he paid for who he was, for what he did and said, and for the world's brokenness. We taste the mystery of God's great love for us and are renewed in faith and hope. Eternal God, we are your good news lived out, a church with purpose, faith nurtured and hearts comforted, gifts shared for the good of all, fierce love in the face of violence, human dignity defended, members of a community held and inspired by God. By becoming flesh in Jesus, God makes all things new. In Christ, God empowers us to live in love. In Christ, God bears the suffering of the world. In Christ, God overcomes death. The risen Christ lives today, present to us and the source of our hope. We are called together by Christ as a community of broken but hopeful believers, loving what he loved and living what he taught, and striving to be faithful servants of God in our time and place. Make us, who through this wine and bread are renewed in faith and hope, witnesses to your divine mission, feeding as we have been fed, forgiving as we have been forgiving, and loving as we have been loved. We remember especially today in prayer those in our community and beyond who are coping with diagnoses new and old. Those in our community and beyond who are suffering with and recovering from COVID-19. Those in our community and beyond who are living with loneliness and loss. And in our prayer cycles, we remember the people and ministries of Bethel United Church in Forestburg, Alberta, and the people and churches of Iran, Iraq, and Syria. Pardon me. Divine creation does not cease until all things have found wholeness, union, and integration with the common ground of all being. As children of the timeless one, our time-bound lives will find completion in the all-embracing Creator. In the meantime, we embrace the present, embodying hope, loving our enemies, caring for the earth, choosing life. Grateful for God's loving action, we cannot keep from offering praise. Creating and seeking relationship in awe and trust, we witness to holy mystery, who is holy love. Amen. Excuse me a moment. It's dryness and allergies. We gather these in all our prayers, thankful that we may turn to you as to a grandmother who watches over us, and pray together as Jesus taught. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Let's all hold in our hand our piece of bread or substitute, ready to partake together. Jesus Christ, the bread of life. Amen. Now let's all hold in our hand our juice, wine, or other drink, ready to partake together. Jesus Christ, the cup of blessing. Amen. Ever-present and gracious God, we place our hope in you. We look to a life beyond life and a future good beyond imagining. A new heaven and a new earth, the end of sorrow, pain, and tears, Christ's return and life with you, the making new of all things. We yearn for the coming of that future, even while participating in your eternal life now. Amen. Now may the God of peace equip you with all good things as you follow the call and lead you on your holy path through Jesus Christ, to whom is everlasting glory, as together we go forth. Amen.